What about for you, Carol, and those people who, maybe people are too respectful in a sense, or nervous in a very different way around circumcisions than they are around funerals. But I've personally, I found the brit milah ceremony when our son was born to be incredibly moving and meaningful. But I've been to these ceremonies where people make jokes, they're uncomfortable, what have you. And fortunately, I have not been to funerals where that's the case. But how do you get over, create the environment where people get past that and connect? You can't make people connect to the profundity of the moment, but when you face a situation where there's maybe too much levity, how do you focus it?
Well, the first thing I do is get everybody centered in one location and then go to make everyone quiet down so that the introduction begins in a quiet atmosphere. I'm frequently just so impressed with the fact that families with not very much Jewish education, who are not observant, choose, as you said, choose to have a brit milah ceremony, to have a bris, where there may be little else that they have done in their lives that was in any way spoke of Jewish observance. And yet, here at this moment, they choose to do this. And I think when it comes to funerals, people almost everybody's gonna have a funeral. They're gonna have some kind of a service. And if they're of Jewish background, then it's in some way, it's gonna be a Jewish funeral. But it's very easy to have a baby circumcised in the hospital and not have a ceremony. And yet these families choose to do it. And I'm so impressed by that.
What would you advise people who want to go into this kind of work? Again, I'm not trying to say that this is the same kind of work that you both do, but I guess to go into work, and Carol, you're married to a rabbi. David, your wife has been involved, previously in Jewish communal work, working for the Jewish community. What would you advise in terms of being close to the flame, if you will, of these really profound moments where you have to deal with people who are experiencing life at its most intense, for better and for worse?
Well, I think that if anyone's looking to do this, to come shadow what we do for a week, for a month, and really get into it and see what we do. I think a lot of people have misconceptions, and it's hard to find Jewish people to be funeral directors. It's not something that you say to your son, "For you, my son, no, forget the medicine, forget the law, become a funeral director." And it's hard, but I always try to find people, and as you all know, how many people do we try to, in our travels together. I think you'd be good for a funeral director. Why don't you come with me? But they have to have a soul. They have to care about our people.
Okay, so to have a soul, what does that mean for you, David?
To be compassionate, just to have the concept of kavod hamet, respect for the dead, and kavod hachayim, respect for the living. It can't just be you go to work and do your thing. It's got to be you go to work and you care about it, and then you go home and it's the same care. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get that call, and the answer is Hineni, I'm here, not call me tomorrow. And you have to have that personality, and you have to have that care in your heart and the care in your brain, and the fortitude to always say Hineni. Because this is when they need you the most. It is a privilege. It's an honor. And to find people to say Hineni all the time, that I'm here, that's a challenge.
You'd mentioned, Carol, that there are really not all that many people who who are mohelim, which is the plural for people who perform ritual circumcision. Why is that, do you suppose? It's probably not a matter of demand, although we're a relatively small community. But
yeah. Well, the Orthodox community always has a few people whose entire profession is performing brit milah and going from home to home to home every day and doing a high volume of ritual circumcisions. And it is a 5-year apprenticeship, so it's not something that's quick to learn. Mm-hmm. And so there are a few people, only men, in the Orthodox community, and they will not serve intermarried couples if the mother is not Jewish, or gay couples. So there's another group of people, and they are liberal mohels. They are all physicians, and many of them are physicians in practice. So there are people who are trained to be mohels, liberal mohels, who don't do very much brit milah because they have full practices. Traditionally, a ritual circumcision is performed during the day, and if someone is in practice, it's very hard to do that. So many of the physicians who are trained are actually not practicing, mm-hmm. which leaves a few people who have more flexible time, who are available and who are willing to serve families that might otherwise be excluded from Jewish ritual.
Mm-hmm. In the time we have left, I'd love to hear you both reflect on what these professions mean to you personally and what impact your work has had on you personally. Because I think, especially when I think of the role of funeral director, I think, wow, that's got to be a very, very tough job. But I know you, David, and I know that you're also very gratified in this work.
Sure. I think that I'm proud of what I do, and it is hard. I mean, no one wants to bury a child. No one wants to serve a family of a friend. And the older I get, the harder I think this job becomes, because you're starting to serve your contemporaries. My children and my wife, I think they pay a penalty for it, because you're on call all the time. But I have to say that I like when people at the end say, thank you for giving me all the information. Thank you for treating me with dignity and respect. And even when it comes to the traditions, which I find fascinating, is a lot of Jewish people have no idea the traditions of our people as it relates to death. And even the most liberal families, we explain to them all the rituals. And a lot of them say, I want to do that. So they become part of the tradition, and they become more part of our community. But I also think that who else to take care of the dead than someone actually cares for the dead? And to me, it's not just a business. It's a profession that is a necessity, and I believe we have the trust of the community and the trust of the families, and I feel good about that.
Mm-hmm. And Carol, for you?
It is such a privilege. It is such an honor to be able to share these very critical moments in people's lives with families, most of whom I've never met before. To be able to celebrate with them, to hear about their families, to hear about the person the baby was named for, to hear that this is a Kiddush cup that came across Eastern Europe through Russia, then across Siberia to Israel, and was brought to America by a grandparent, mm-hmm. And then given to the family for this child's bris. To share in that is really an honor.
Has your thinking about the mystery of life shifted at all as a result of the work that you two do?
Each day's a blessing, and tomorrow's promised to no one. You try to do your best, but you really see that tomorrow is promised to no one. And I have in my bathroom, I have on the mirror, it says life is good. And I try to remind myself, I put the sticker right there, so when I start the day to go, you know, it is good, and I'm alive. And okay, so whatever happens, happens, but I know I started today. And it does, it's definitely puts perspective on a lot of things.
It reminds you that life is a blessing.
I want to take the time to thank both of you profoundly and from the bottom of my heart for being with us. This was a very good conversation, and I appreciate your participating in it.
Well, thank you.
And thank you, Aaron.